During our time with the Tea Party movement, we spent countless hours, taking on Democrats and taking on establishment Republicans who were selling out the people. And what we learned from that is when conservatives come together behind one candidate, we win. And we did this by traveling all over the country and organizing. That was back in 2009. In 2010, there was a wave, and we took back the House. In 2012, there was a wave, and we took back the Senate. And in 2016, there was a wave, and we took back the White House. In 2024, there's going to be a wave, and we're going to take back District 33.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to see so many people turn out in this cold weather. I see a lot of people in the room that I know and that they know who I am and what I was. Some of you don't know the answer to that. I served as sheriff in Rockwall County for 20 years. I took office in 2001 and retired at the end of 2020. And during that time frame, during that 20-year process, I served as president of the National Sheriff's Association from June of 17 to June of 18. I was co-chair of the Border Security Committee for 6 years, and I still consider that to be the most important committee at the National Sheriff's Association level. I met Katrina probably in the last 2 or 3 months. I had not known her previously. I have met with her 3 times in a period of a couple of months. The very first time I met with Katrina, I was extremely impressed with her and her candor and her ease of speaking. And it told me that she was a very confident person. And at that point, I did not know, and she told me she was thinking about running for state representative, but she had not finally made up her mind. Shortly after that, she did. I met with her 2 times after that, and I told her I would endorse her and I would support her because I think she is the right person. And thank y'all being here to support her. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. How great is Sheriff Evanson? The Attorney General's running a little late, so we're going to go out of order here, but this is not our first rodeo, so we're just going to have some fun. And I would like to thank you all for being here. We were a little concerned about the weather. This is just truly amazing to see this turnout, and I just appreciate you all so much because, yes, it is cold outside, but the Attorney General is going to bring the fire. We are super excited that he is coming to the district today, and I think you all can assure him that District 33 is about to send some reinforcements. Because there is no one, and I mean no one, that I would rather be in the trenches than Ken Paxton. We've been friends for a while. I've supported him for a very long time, and we've been in the trenches for years together, on the front lines of the conservative movement in this state and in the nation. He's a fighter and a survivor. Maybe that's why we get along so well. But that will be the plan when you send me to Austin. We're going to stand up, we're going to speak out, and we're going to fight back. Because here's the rule with people like myself and Ken. When you're standing up for God, country, and the Constitution, you don't back down. You double down. I am a native Texan who was just born in Kansas. And I say that because it's very important that you understand that I really am a native Texan. You know, my grandfather owned a little grocery store out in Forney next to the Cotton Gin. His 15-year-old and only daughter was pregnant. She had red hair, blue eyes, and freckled all over. And she was pregnant by a black man in the 70s. And he looked at her and said, "Abortion is not an option." So, Gladney at the time did not have a method to adopt biracial babies. So he sent her to live with my great-grandmother in Kansas so I could be born and placed up for adoption. Long story short, she changed her mind and they brought me right back home to Texas. So from birth, I have struggled to find my place in this world. I can be a little feisty, if you don't know. I get in trouble a lot in the press because I say things that we're not supposed to say. I'm a black Republican woman. We're not supposed to exist. And, you know, it's also one of the reasons I became one of the original founders of the Tea Party movement. There's this thing called freedom that I tend to enjoy, and I'm sure many of you do as well. And so, as a Texan, it's been kind of frustrating that we remain in the shadows of Florida when it comes to the issues that impact the people in our state. And now, during a time when our nation is in transition to whatever we determine we transition into, this is not the country that you and I grew up in. Half the time, I don't even recognize it. We're engaging in discussions that are nonsensical. What is so difficult? There are two genders. This is not rocket science. But we're having these debates on the national stage that aren't even debatable. But that just goes to show you just how devolved our society has become. And over the decades, Texas has been infiltrated by a lot of nefarious actors, impacting every aspect of our society and, unfortunately, our schools. And we have Republicans here in Texas who are just okay with the status quo. They seem to be okay sharing power with the Democrats and okay putting people that worked in the Obama administration in places to kill conservative legislation in our state. One of those Republicans is Justin Holland. And you know, he joined this group of liberal Republicans and actually built a coalition with the Democrats and, you know, whether it was to stop or slow down or stall conservative legislation. Rockwall County and this district is the most conservative district in the state of Texas. But Holland's record is very clear, and you don't have to look any further than the last legislative session, as he votes and continues to support Dade Phelan, or what do they call him in Austin? Drunk Dade. And he's proud, and he boasts about his support for Dade Phelan, who insists on giving power to Democrats, putting them in powerful committee chairs. And that's what determines whether or not we can get our bills that we support passed. So it wasn't really surprising to me when Justin Holland voted unanimously with Democrats to impeach our Attorney General. You know, Ken Paxton is a nemesis to the Biden administration. You know, we're proud of him for that. And whether it's from the border to guns, whether it's, you know, pro-life to religious liberty, whether it's lockdowns or election integrity, Ken Paxton has been our champion. And so while Ken Paxton has been out there fighting for us, Justin Holland has been colluding with Democrats to impeach him. Now, make no mistake, this is not just about the impeachment of our Attorney General, because he also joined unanimously with Democrats for gun control. Can you imagine that? A Republican in Texas voting with Democrats to criminalize law-abiding adults ages 18 to 20 from purchasing a semi-automatic rifle. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not very Second Amendment supportive. And he also voted unanimously with Democrats to block Governor Abbott's education initiative. Which, by the way, if you've been paying attention, Governor Abbott's not very happy about that either. So all of this, plus his refusal to support bills like keeping the Chinese Communist Party from purchasing land in Texas. He didn't support it. He didn't support bills like ending in-state tuition for illegals. So he wants to keep the magnets. So at this point, I think it's safe to assume that District 33 is now represented by a Democrat. And also, Ken Paxton, like President Trump, has been under attack since the moment he stood up to the establishment. I mean, I can go back years when he was still a state senator, and they have come for him all day, every day. It doesn't matter, for anything they can think of, just like they've been doing to President Trump. And I know the feeling because as somebody who's also been on the front lines of this fight, I've had my share of subpoenas lately. Anybody heard of January 6th? I have lost track of the number of hours I have spent, at least 20, testifying to Congress, to the DOJ, being interviewed by the FBI, having the marshals come to my home, and I'm still being brought in to testify just recently in the 14th Amendment cases in Colorado. You know, the ones where the George Soros-funded prosecutors are trying to take Trump off the ballot? And I'll get called in again when the January 6th committee trial begins this coming March. But I'll be there with bells on because that's just what we do. You know, during our time with the Tea Party movement, we spent countless hours, taking on Democrats and taking on establishment Republicans who were selling out the people. And what we learned from that is when conservatives come together behind one candidate, we win. And we did this by traveling all over the country and organizing. That was back in 2009. In 2010, there was a wave, and we took back the House. In 2012, there was a wave, and we took back the Senate. And in 2016, there was a wave, and we took back the White House. In 2024, there's going to be a wave, and we're going to take back District 33. So during my journey, I have my name in the historical record because of President Trump and serving him. My name is in the historical record of the United States House of Representatives. Thank you, Liz Cheney. And my name is in the historical record of the United States Senate. Thank you to the second impeachment trial. So I think it's safe to say that if we lose our country, my grandchildren will know it's not because of me. And now we focus on Texas. Because we do have Republicans here who seem to be satisfied with giving our state to the Democrats for whatever reason, power, money, you name it. Austin has become a miniature Washington, D.C. They are trying to centralize government in Austin and take away power from the local governments. I support local control 100%. And people all over the country say, why is it that every time we take one step forward, we end up taking 10 steps backwards? And we're running out of time. And it's very simple to me. I say, get off the sidelines. These things only happen when good people do nothing. And they give me the excuses, well, you know, I've got this and I've got that. And I say, well, okay, let me tell you something. You can't keep electing the same people over and over again while expecting a different result. And now is a time of change. This is a movement and this is a wave. So we are asking everyone to step up, be bold and courageous, and let's send Justin home. It was Ronald Reagan who said that freedom is just one generation away from extinction. But after what we've seen in 2020, 2021, and 2022, I say that our freedom is just one election away from extinction. And it is incumbent upon us, while we still have the Constitution, to do what our founders gave us the power to do, and that is to be in control of our destiny. And so I just want to remind you all, because so many of you have been distressed and are concerned about the future, but we do have the Constitution. We're in a state where we can still fight. And I want to remind you all that just one person standing in the body of Christ is more powerful than millions combined. So we have to be bold and we have to stand up. And look, I know it's not easy. As someone who's been through it, you know, my plan is obviously not God's plan. Otherwise, I'd be traveling the world. And, you know, I didn't come from an affluent family that could protect me from growing up, but that is what made me who I am today and the woman you see at this podium. I am deeply, deeply grateful for the level of support that we have received in this district in such a short amount of time. Our beloved retired sheriff has endorsed the campaign. Thank you, Sheriff. Just recently, Ag Commissioner Sid Miller endorsed the campaign. But the first person that endorsed this campaign, without hesitation, was our Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Democrats are about to spend $100 million in our state, and I don't think we're ready for that. We have to stand up and fight, and sending a message to Austin is going to be a part of that fight. It is going to take unapologetic, fearless, and bold conservatives to stand up for what we know is right and to not bend to the will of the leftist mob, because they're coming. In fact, they are here. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to join this movement and to support my campaign for state representative in District 33. And you can do so by donating $20.24 to be a part of the 2024 wave. Also, we're going to have meet and greets on the website. We're going to have at least 15 different meet and greets across the district in all these neighborhoods. So come out and talk. Let me get to know you one-on-one and answer the hard questions, because this actually may be it for us. And I'm not going to go down without a fight. So I would like you all to join me, because we must demand a secure border. Because without a secure border, as President Trump says, we won't have a country. We must give parents the right to choose their children's education, because a quality education is the dividing line between success and poverty. We must continue to protect the unborn, and we must protect our communities from being underserviced while being overdeveloped. We must continue to stand up for the Constitution and speak the truth to power. So I look forward to seeing all of you. When the Attorney General gets here, we'll let him come up and say a few words. And I just want to say $20.24 is a very, very small price to pay so that you can go to sleep at night and not worry about your representative voting unanimously with Democrats. So one thing I'll share with you, because there are a lot of new faces here, is there's a story that I tell about President Trump, because a lot of people want to know 3 things that are the most common questions that are asked about him. So I'll take the opportunity to share those 3 things if you want to hear it. Okay. The first thing is, yes, he always has a Diet Coke on his desk. Yes, it is true that he loves McDonald's. And I'm just the messenger, but yes, it is true that he likes his steaks very, very, very well done. You know, I mentioned all the hard times, but there were some really great times. I'll share one last story with you. And people always say, you know, what was your favorite part about working for President Trump and being in the White House? And hands down, it had to be flying on Air Force One. It was the coolest thing ever to this day. Because if you didn't know, when you make phone calls from Air Force One, you don't just pick up the phone and, you know, phone home. The military makes the call for you. So one night, and of course I had my list of people every time I was on the airplane to make those calls, but one night I called my son, and the military aide kept coming back to the phone saying, he keeps hanging up on us. I thought, well, that's strange. Try him again. So 3 times we tried to call this kid. He's 27 now, but a kid at the time. And I thought, man, this is a bummer. So when I get home, I walk in, and of course he's playing on the game. And I said, why did you keep hanging up on the military? And he said, what are you talking about, Mom? And I said, I've been calling you for an hour from Air Force One. And he goes, oh, I thought that was a prank. So that by far is really the highlight of working for President Trump, other than working for President Trump. And it has truly been an honor. Looks like we're going to have another President Trump term coming up soon. And I don't know about you, but man, I'm really excited to see what's about to happen next. Because 2024, I think, is going to be very unpredictable. I think we are in a wave election. And with your support, I would look forward to fighting for you in Austin. And it would also be the honor of my life to be your voice while I'm there. So thank you all very much. And I believe the Attorney General should be here in just a few minutes. And actually, I'd like to share something before I exit the podium about General Paxton. Did anybody see all the shenanigans during 2020? Did anybody read the Texas case that went to the Supreme Court that they didn't take? If you have not seen the submission from our Attorney General on the 2020 elections, I highly encourage you to read it. It was beautifully written, as if it was something out of 1776. And I'd say print it out and keep it. It's going to be worth something someday, because Ken Paxton really came to the defense of President Trump during that time. He was there with me on stage on January 6th, speaking out at behest of the president. And for whatever it's worth, Ken Paxton has been a steadfast fighter for as long as I have known him. And there has never been a time when I've had a question or I've needed something from him that he didn't answer immediately. He is truly someone that I believe is a statesman. And it's very rare to come across statesmen in politics these days, but he's definitely one of them. And that's why he's been attacked since day one. And there's a saying that if you're being attacked, not that you're over the target, but you're only being attacked by people who are doing less than you. Because the people who are doing the same as you, or even more, are collaborating with you. And I think that's a testament to our Attorney General, because from day one, he's been fighting the Obama administration. He's been fighting the Biden administration and fighting to help the Trump administration against all odds. So we should be very proud that he is our Attorney General, and we should all stand with him and fight for him the way that he's been fighting for us. Is he here yet?
We're wiring him up.
Wonderful. I'm excited. I actually haven't seen the Attorney General since January 6th. So we've talked on the phone and text, but I'm excited to get to see him and have all of the love from this crowd support him. Is he coming this way? You're not, you're fine. Don't sit down. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the most conservative Attorney General in the country, and our friend, Attorney General Ken Paxton.
Good to see you. Thank you. Great to see you.
You too. There you go.
Well, so great. Sorry I'm late. I had a little flight delay. The weirdest thing ever, we're getting on a flight in Houston, and they somehow Southwest deleted all of the passengers' names. So it's really hard to get on a flight when they've deleted every passenger. So they were trying to figure it out. They finally had everybody recheck in, everybody. So it was crazy. So anyway, it's so good to be here on this really chilly day. I've known Katrina, how long have I known you? 2009, maybe?
Maybe.
When did you start Tea Party stuff?
Yeah, 2009.
That's when we met. And she helped me, I think, run for the Senate. She was there when I ran for Attorney General. She's been there through all of this grassroots effort to keep Texas the way we want it. And so I'm really grateful to her for everything she's done for me, and I'm really excited to be her to endorse Katrina Pearson for state representative. So not only do I have a great history of over a decade, 15 years or so with Katrina and watching her work, actually when she started doing these interviews for Donald Trump. And I'm like, how did she get this job? And then suddenly she's like a press secretary, and I'm like, this is really amazing that she came up from the grassroots and she ends up at the White House doing just amazing things. I'm still not sure how you pulled that off, but it was amazing. I also have, unfortunately, negative stories about the current state rep. I can remember several years ago, I had asked the House and the Senate to give me the authority to prosecute human trafficking. So right now, or at that time, I had the authority to prosecute voter fraud, but not human trafficking. Well, I got it through the Senate, 28-3, no problem. And then I had a big fight in the House. And one of the guys that stopped it, who wouldn't vote for it, and I remember calling him on Memorial Weekend. It was the last day that we could get the bill passed on the House floor. And I said, Justin, I really need you to pass this. A lot of women are going to be hurt if I can't prosecute voter fraud, because there's only a few counties in the state that really have the expertise to try to do it, and not very many of these cases are being prosecuted, so literally thousands of women are going to be harmed. And he said, well, I'm sorry, but my DA doesn't want this, and so I said, I can't do it. And I said, so you're willing to sacrifice all these young women? He said, yeah, I really am. And this is your state representative. And I thought, what a really bad person. I've never had a Republican tell me something that I thought was so bad. But that's where we're at. And of course, I don't know if you all know this, but this past summer, they tried to impeach me. Did anybody know that? Well, so I want to tell a story about that. It was shocking to me, and it's going to tie into Katrina and why she is so important, and why I'm so excited to be here, and why I'm so excited that she's running. But I had no idea it was coming. It wasn't like they called me and said, hey, you did a bunch of stuff wrong. We want to talk to you about it. No, not a single state rep called me. No one let me know about it. And by the way, I'm in the Republican Party, I think, still, and they are too. You'd think I'd have some kind of courtesy call from the speaker or maybe the committee or somebody to say, hey, is this stuff true? No. They did all this secret investigation, and then the story was, the narrative was, well, why would a bunch of Republicans do it? It must be true. And so I need to educate you on how the Texas House works, because it's really important to her race that you understand this. I was there for 10 years, and here's how it works. The Democrats have figured this out about 14 years ago when Joe Strauss, whatever it was, that Joe Strauss became Speaker. They block vote. So there's 65 Democrats. We have 150 House members. And so you need 76 votes to win. The Speaker has his own vote, obviously, whoever is Speaker. So they only need 10 Republicans. So all the Democrats get together and they start talking to the Republicans and they ask one question: who will give us the most of what we want? Whoever that is gets that block. And then they're off to the races, and that Republican just has to find 10 Republicans who are willing to take all the best committee assignments, appropriations and Ways and Means. It's a pretty easy deal. And so every time that we elect a Speaker now, the Democrats control this election. And so they get what they want, and guess what? I don't know if y'all noticed this, but I think at that time, I'd sued Joe Biden 49 times in 2.5 years. And they didn't like it. Because we kept winning. And so, and you'll ask me, why do you think this happened? I think Joe Biden went to the House Democrats, said, we want Ken Paxton out. And they went to the Speaker, Dave Phelan, and said, we need this done. He said, okay, in order to keep my job, I have to do what you want me to do. And you'll say, well, why do you think that? Well, what do you think the odds are, out of 4 attorneys that represented the House Investigating Committee, that 2 of them came from the Department of Justice? Is that a coincidence? Just a random fact? They just showed up to help the Republicans? The Department of Justice, democratically controlled by the Biden administration, Merrick Garland, and they show up to help deal with me? That's not an accident. And so that's what happened. They didn't let me know about it. There was no due process. I was not given the opportunity to respond, even after we knew. We tried. It happened in 3 days. From start to finish, it was done in 3 days. Of course, they took the vote on Memorial Weekend, and I was out in 3 days. And why did they do it then? They had all these important things to get done. There were lots of border security things they didn't get done. Election integrity, and I'll bring that up in a minute because it ties into what she's going to be doing. We have all these Democratic chairs that are controlling everything, and yet they spent the last couple of days of their session focused on me, my own party. They left me with no money because I had just spent $16 million campaigning against a primary opponent, then a runoff with George P. Bush. I did beat him 68-32, just as a side note. And so I had no money, and then a gag order was put on me by the Lieutenant Governor, so I couldn't respond, and so the House kept leaking information, and they had all this information that I didn't have. They were supposed to share it. We had subpoenas that were issued by the Lieutenant Governor, but they were never enforced. And so I'm going through this summer. I have no money. Glenn Hager, the comptroller, Republican, decides to take away my salary illegally, so I don't have any personal resources. So I don't have any money because I've spent it all on my campaign. I can't hire attorneys. Fortunately, I started trying to raise money, and I was able to convince a bunch of attorneys to come work for me on the hope that I could pay them in the future. And they did that. We planned this, and we worked. And I told my attorneys, look, the reality is you're going to have to be so good that you're going to have to win every single day. And you're going to have to win every hour. Because if you don't win every part of this trial, they will find one of these that they can stretch. And it wasn't as simple as you might think, because there were 31 senators. They had already eliminated my wife illegally, so she couldn't vote. There's 12 Democrats who had already decided before they got there that it didn't matter what the evidence was, they would vote for impeachment. So I'm down to 18 votes, of which I have to get half. You think, well, for sure the Republicans are going to do the right things. The Republicans said. Unfortunately, there were 3 or 4 of them that wanted my job. And so behind the scenes, some of these Republicans were working to try to get one vote, just one of the 20. They throw them out there, let's just pick one, and we'll impeach him. And so all of this is going against me, and I'm having to get up every day and try to convince my team I'm not going to resign because the media keeps saying I'm going to resign. So we get there, and you saw what happened. We ended up winning all those counts, and I'm going to tell you why I'm here. We did have a great legal team. I don't know, how many of y'all saw some of the trial with Tony Buzbee and Mitch Little? Amazing, right? I will say I'm better at putting together legal teams in the House. Their guys were horrible. And honestly, their two top lawyers were conflicted out because I had asked them questions about my securities case 9 years earlier, and they lied. But I didn't push it because I wanted them to stay on, because I figured they were past their prime. I was worried I'd get worse people. And so I just left them in place. And it turned out to be a good decision. But after it was over, I was like, I didn't win just because I had a good legal case. I won for two reasons. One, the people of Texas spoke to their senators. The senators had this rule that you couldn't talk to them. Unfortunately, you guys ignored that rule. They're elected by you. You, of course, should be able to talk to them. They are not jurors. They kept playing, we're jurors, we can't talk to you. Well, guess what? Jurors are not elected. They're appointed. They're picked. They're not allowed to talk to people. They were not jurors. They are your representatives, and you all spoke out. And secondly, you prayed for me. And I'm convinced that there were over 100,000 people across the country praying for me, and that is why I am here today. It's because you spoke up and said, we're not putting up with this. He was just elected 4.5 years ago. And by the way, that they ignored several state laws. One law says they have to swear witnesses in. They didn't swear any witnesses in. They never had witnesses. They didn't have evidence. They never presented any evidence at the House level. They kept it all secret. Why did they not swear in? Why did they not follow state law? You know why they didn't want to swear witnesses in? Because they didn't want to lock in testimony. They wanted to bring these witnesses over to the Senate. First, they were hoping I'd resign beforehand. Second, they didn't want to swear the witnesses in because they didn't want them locked into a testimony so they could change their story as they went. That's why they didn't follow state law. And neither the House nor the Senate worried about that state law. And second law that was completely ignored by both houses was this law that says that you cannot remove somebody from office for things that happened prior to the election, as long as the people knew about it. So if you all, they spent what? The Bush clan, Karl Rove, and the Bushes, and this group called Texans for Lawsuit Reform, which is behind all of these liberal candidates, including Justin Holland, supported my impeachment. They supported my opponents. They spent about $30 million trying to get me beat. And they were definitely involved with this. We've got emails and texts with Karl Rove, Texans for Lawsuit Reform, which is Dick Weekly, a home builder, and Dick Trabolsi. They were all in this together. And despite all of that money and despite all of that effort, it is your talking to your senators that made the difference. Well, so how does this all tie into Katrina Pearson? Well, there's another piece of this. There's things that have got to be fixed. And I had asked the Texas House because of a decision made by the Court of Criminal Appeals. Now, I have asked this question all over the state among very educated Republican voters. And I'm going to ask you today, how many of you all know what the Court of Criminal Appeals does in this state? Okay, I see a few hands. So in Texas, we have a different system than most states. We have a bifurcated system where we have a Supreme Court that is the final appeal on civil matters. So most of the cases I deal with go there. And then we have the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is like our Supreme Court on criminal matters. So they have the opportunity, if they want to take cases at the highest level. So let me ask you this, as the most educated voters in Texas, and by the way, I've never had an audience even come close on this question, and I'm going to take you through it. How many of y'all, raise your hand, if you can name the 9 Republican members of the Court of Criminal Appeals? Raise your hand. I don't see any hands. All right, how about 8? Let's keep going. 7? 6? 5? Not you don't count. She's with me. She's working on the races. 4? 3? If you, by the way, if you raise your hand, I'm going to ask you their names. 2? 1? All right, there's nobody in this room that knows anybody on the Court of Criminal Appeals. The reason I do that quiz, and you are like every audience, even if I have lawyers in the room, unless they're criminal defense attorneys or they're DAs, no one knows who's on that court. And they're all Republicans. 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago in December, 2 days after the filing deadline to run against the 3 members of the Court of Criminal Appeals that were up, we have 9 members. They have 6-year terms, 3 were up. They waited till the filing deadline so nobody could run against them. And they struck down a statute from 1951 that directed the Attorney General of Texas, and by the way, I didn't pass this, I wouldn't have run in 1951, I'm not that old, directed the Attorney General of Texas to prosecute voter fraud. It's the only thing I had original jurisdiction on. Everything else I have to get referred to me. It's criminal. So I can't prosecute anything. We do a lot of criminal work, but we get referrals from DAs. That's why I wanted the ability to prosecute human trafficking. I wanted original jurisdiction so we could actually get it done. So they strike it down, and you're like, what rationale after 71 years? We've had thousands of cases. We have thousands of cases of precedent. Why would the Court of Criminal Appeals strike it down 8-1? They said that it was unconstitutional for the Attorney General of Texas to prosecute voter fraud because I'm in the executive branch, and because I'm in the executive branch, it's illegal under the Constitution for me to go to court. Now, you guys aren't lawyers. It's illegal for the Attorney General of Texas to go to court. Okay, the Attorney General of Texas has been going to court since the Attorney General was created in the 1800s. And by the way, every Attorney General in the country goes to court, and they're all in the executive branch. And presumably, if the Court of Criminal Appeals is correct, every Attorney General since the founding of our country has been violating the Constitution. And only our Court of Criminal Appeals has figured it out. Is that just random? I don't think it's random. It's insane, and it's absolutely false and wrong, and no one's really challenged it. No one even talks about it. But why would they do that? Here's what I'm convinced. George Soros has figured it out. He went around and got DAs elected in all the Democratic counties. Travis County used to have a Democratic DA that I worked with. She used to prosecute. That's not what George Soros wants. He does not want crimes prosecuted. You can see the crime rate has really changed in Austin. Why? One, they got rid of their police force. And then second, they changed out DAs. George Soros went in and spent a little money, got a new DA. Same thing happened in Bexar County, which is San Antonio. He's done that all over the state. Why? He doesn't want prosecution of voter fraud or anything else. So, second thing he did, I think he put together a Court of Criminal Appeals that are Republican. Now, I can't prove that, but it sure is odd that they would strike down a statute under the most insane reason that now stops me from prosecuting voter fraud. And then the third place they went was to come after me. If they had all three taken care of, we would never be able to prosecute voter fraud. And right now, I can't prosecute voter fraud. And why can't I do that? Because the Court of Criminal Appeals struck it down. So I need two things done. And part of how we're going to fix this is we're going to elect a new Court of Criminal Appeals. The second way we're going to fix it is I asked the Texas legislature to fix this, to reauthorize me to prosecute voter fraud this last session. The Senate overwhelmingly gave me that authority. It went to the House, couldn't get a hearing. I called Dave Phelan. He never called me back because he never returns my phone calls and hasn't since he's been there. And I was told by his staff and by other members of his leadership team, other House members, he doesn't have time to deal with that issue. It's not part of what he cares about. So it didn't get passed. So there's two parts to this. I'm convinced if we do not fix this issue, we're going to lose the state of Texas. For all the other things that you care about, Border Patrol, all the other things that we care about, if we don't fix the voting in this state, if we don't protect ourselves. And by the way, when Trump got elected, or in the last election where all these states had problems, they tried to do the same thing in Texas. And we fought them in all these liberal counties where they're trying to mail out ballots, in Travis County, in Bexar County. We fought them and we won. So what happened in all these other states did not happen here. But if we don't fix this, and that means we need to elect a new speaker, we need to elect new state reps who will actually pass this, and we need to elect a new Court of Criminal Appeals. So I'm going to give you the names of the people that are running against the incumbents. I hope that you'll write this down, and then I'm going to ask you to do something for her. So we've got Gina Parker, Lee Finley, and David Schenck. I'm going to repeat those because I want you to tell all of your friends. This is a grassroots effort. There's not a lot of money spent on these races. Gina Parker, Lee Finley, and David Schenck. So I just need you to spread the word because no one knows who to vote for. They're just going to randomly pick a name. And then second, I need you to make sure she gets elected here. Because if we can't change the Texas House, none of that matters. And we're going to lose the state because they're going to cheat and no one's going to be able to go after it. And so I'm going to ask you to help her with money because Justin Holland is part of the lobby, he's part of the swamp, and he's going to get the money from Austin. That's where his money comes from. It doesn't come from you. It comes from them. So she needs your help. Second, something that's very sounds very basic, and you might think, oh, that doesn't work. This is why I got elected. I need each of you to find 20 people, 20 couples that will vote for her. And I need you to harass them for their information, their contact information, their phone number, their email, and any contact information that she would need to recontact them with mail, email, and phone so that we know who they are. And those people won't know who to vote for state rep, but they'll trust you. They won't even know her. If you do that, that's 40 votes that each of you can deliver. If you do that, if this room does that, I think she wins the race. I know she wins the race. So I'm here today because I believe in what she's doing. I've watched her. She's proven herself like very few people that ever run for office. And I consider her a friend. And I'm going to do everything that I can to help Katrina Pearson become your next state representative, because it's not just about her. It's not about me. This is about saving our state. And if we save our state, we save our country. Thank you all very much.